The morning sun rose over Elysium 7 like it did every day. Golden light spread across green fields and blue lakes. Children ran to school. Farmers worked their land. Families sat together for breakfast. It was a peaceful world, a happy world, home to 2.3 million humans who had traveled across the stars to build a new life. Maria stood on her porch and watched her 2 children play in the yard. Her husband David brought her coffee. They smiled at each other. After 15 years on this colony world, they had everything they ever wanted: a home, a family, peace. None of them knew that death was coming. Far above the clouds, space itself began to tear open. Ships emerged from the darkness. Hundreds of them. They were massive vessels covered in sharp angles and dark metal. They belonged to the Dominion, an empire that had ruled this part of the galaxy for 12,000 years. High Archon Eth stood on the bridge of his flagship. He was tall and thin with gray skin and 4 cold black eyes. He looked down at the planet below with disgust. Humans. They had spread across 43 worlds in just 300 years. They bred like insects. They built colonies on worlds they had marked as their own. It was time to teach them their place. "Begin the cleansing," Eth ordered. His voice was calm, bored even. This was not war to him. This was pest control. Humans were too primitive to deserve a formal declaration of war. They were nothing, less than nothing. They did not send warnings. They did not make demands. They simply began to kill. The first orbital strikes hit the major cities. Beams of purple energy fell from the sky like the anger of gods. Buildings exploded. Streets melted. Thousands died in seconds. The screams started immediately. Maria grabbed her children and ran inside. David tried to call for help, but all communications were dead. The had blocked everything. Through the window, she saw the sky turn red with fire. "Mommy, what's happening?" her daughter asked. She was only 7 years old. Her eyes were full of tears. Maria had no answer. Then came the second phase. Ships flew low over the surviving towns and released a gray mist. It spread slowly across the land. They called it the Quiet Death. It was a biological weapon designed to kill humans slowly and painfully. The mist reached Maria's home. It seeped through the walls. There was no way to stop it, no way to escape. David fell first. He coughed blood and collapsed. Maria held her children close as they all began to struggle for breath. The poison burned their lungs. It felt like drowning in fire. "I love you," Maria whispered to her children. "I love you so much." They died in her arms. Then she died holding them. Across Elysium 7, the same scene repeated 2.3 million times. Families held each other. Parents tried to protect children they could not save. Old people prayed. Young people screamed. Everyone died. The killing took only 6 hours. When it was over, they surveyed their work. The cities were gone. The fields were ash. The lakes had boiled away. What was once a garden world was now a grave world, gray and silent and dead. High Archon Eth nodded with satisfaction. The human infestation on this world had been removed. Perhaps now the other humans would understand their place. Perhaps they would run back to their little blue planet and stay there. He did not bother to send scouts to watch human space. Why would he? Insects did not fight back. Insects did not seek revenge. Humans would cry and mourn and do nothing. That was the way of weak species. The fleet turned and left. They returned home to celebrate another successful cleansing, another world purified. The Dominion had done this many times before to many species. None had ever challenged them. But they made one mistake, a small mistake that would cost them everything. They did not destroy the automated distress beacon. Deep in the ruins of the main colony, a small machine had survived. It was buried under rubble, damaged but still working. For 6 hours it had recorded everything. Every orbital strike, every scream, every death. It captured Maria holding her children as they died. It captured old men praying for mercy that never came. It captured the final moments of 2.3 million human beings. 3 days after the massacre, the beacon systems came back online. It scanned the planet and found no life. It scanned the sky and found no enemy ships. Following its programming, it launched itself into space. The small machine was not fast. It was not powerful. It was just a beacon doing what it was built to do. It entered hyperspace and began the long journey to Earth. Inside its memory banks, it carried the voices of the dead, the screams of the dying, the proof of what they had done. Every moment of horror was saved in perfect detail. The beacon did not know that it was carrying the spark that would start a fire. It did not know that its recordings would wake something terrible in the human species. It did not know that because of what it carried, an empire that had stood for 12,000 years would fall. It simply flew toward Earth, carrying the last message of Elysium 7. Behind it, the dead planet turned slowly in the darkness of space. No birds sang, no children laughed, no farmers worked the fields. There was only silence, the silence of 2.3 million souls who would never speak again. But they would not be forgotten, and they would be avenged. On the High Archon Eth attended a celebration dinner. He ate fine food and drank expensive wine. His advisors praised his decisive action against the human pests. Musicians played, dancers performed. Everyone agreed that the humans had learned their lesson. None of them looked toward human space. None of them saw the beacon traveling through hyperspace. None of them knew that, in 3 short weeks, their entire civilization would face a fury they could not imagine. They had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. They had crushed dozens of species. They had never met an enemy they could not defeat. But they had never met humanity. They had never seen what humans became when their children were murdered. They would learn soon enough. The beacon reached Earth on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Helena Vance was drinking coffee in her office when the emergency call came. She was 62 years old with gray hair and sharp blue eyes. She had served in the Confederate Navy for 40 years. She had seen battles. She had seen death. She thought nothing could surprise her anymore. She was wrong. The beacon was brought to Naval Command and connected to the main display. Helena stood with 20 other admirals and generals. President Marshall watched through a video link. Everyone was quiet. Everyone was curious. A distress beacon from Elysium 7. What could have happened? The recording began to play. For the next 2 hours, they watched the death of a world. They saw the ships appear in the sky. They saw the orbital strikes turn cities to fire. They saw the gray mist spread across the land. They watched men, women, and children die in agony. The recording showed everything. A mother holding her babies as they choked on poison. An old teacher trying to protect his students. A young couple dying in each other's arms. A little girl calling for her parents who were already dead. 2.3 million people, murdered, every single one. Helena Vance did not move. She did not blink. She watched every second with eyes like ice. Around her, strong men and women broke down. Some cried, some vomited, some had to leave the room. When the recording ended, there was silence. President spoke first. His voice was barely a whisper. Who did this? The Dominion, an intelligence officer, answered. An alien empire. They have ruled this sector for 12,000 years. They consider humans pests. Pests, Helena repeated. The word was cold and flat. They didn't even declare war. They just exterminated them like insects. Helena stood up. Everyone looked at her. Her face showed no emotion, but her eyes burned with something dark and terrible. Show it to everyone, she said. President frowned. Admiral. Show the recording to every human being, every colony, every station, every ship. Let them see what was done to our people. Let them see the faces of our dead children. Some advisors protested. It was too horrible. It would cause panic. It would break morale. President looked at the frozen image on the screen, a family holding each other in death. "Do it," he said. "Show them everything." Within hours, the recording played across all human space. It was not edited. It was not softened. Every human with access to a screen saw the massacre of Elysium 7. The reaction was not what the advisors expected. There was no panic. There was no chaos. Something else happened instead. Humanity went quiet. It was the quiet of a storm building, the quiet of a predator before it strikes, the quiet of a species remembering what it truly was. For 300 years, humans had been peaceful. They had spread to the stars looking for new homes, not conquests. They had built colonies and farms and schools. They had raised families and written poetry and made art. They had forgotten the warriors they used to be. Elysium 7 reminded them. The next day, recruitment centers across Earth were overwhelmed. Millions of people lined up to join the military. Factory workers demanded to make weapons. Scientists offered their research. Everyone wanted to help. Everyone wanted to fight. Old enemies became friends. Countries that had argued for centuries now stood together. Political parties stopped fighting. Religious groups prayed as one. Every human looked at the stars with the same thought in their mind. Never again, never again, never again. President addressed the United Nations. The building was packed. The world was watching. "They believed we would scatter," he said. His voice was steady but filled with cold fury. "They believed we would cower. They believed we would cry and do nothing while they murdered our children." He paused. The silence was heavy. "They have made the last mistake their empire will ever make." The crowd did not cheer. They did not need to. The promise in his words was enough. That night, Admiral Helena Vance met with the president in a secret underground facility. What she showed him made him sit down in shock. "How is this possible?" he asked. Helena smiled. It was not a warm smile. 50 years ago, the first deep space explorers found evidence of They found dead worlds, exterminated species. We knew that someday they might come for us too. She pressed a button. Holographic images filled the room. Ships, thousands upon thousands of ships. "So we prepared." The president stared at the images. Massive warships, weapons platforms, carriers, destroyers, battleships, and at the center 12 enormous vessels that dwarfed everything else. 60,000 warships, Helena said, built in secret, hidden in asteroid fields and hollow moons, armed with weapons the galaxy has never seen, crewed by men and women who have trained their entire lives for this moment. 60,000, the president whispered. They have 2,000 ships in their entire navy. They have ruled the galaxy because no one could challenge them. Helena's eyes were cold fire. That ends now. She transmitted orders to hidden bases across human space. Asteroid fields opened to reveal shipyards. Moon bases powered up. Secret facilities came alive after decades of waiting. The Retribution fleet was waking up. On the bridge of the massive warship UTS Fury of Terra, Helena took command. The ship was 15 kilometers long. It carried enough firepower to destroy a planet, and it was just one of 12 Titan-class super dreadnoughts. "Admiral," her communications officer said, "all ships report ready. 60,000 vessels awaiting your orders." Helena looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there they were celebrating. They thought they had won. They thought humans were broken. They had no idea what was coming. "Send the signal," Helena ordered. "Wake them all." Across human space, engines roared to life. Weapons systems activated. Crews took their stations. 60,000 warships began to move, forming into the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. They had wanted to teach humanity fear. They were about to learn what fear truly meant. Admiral Helena Vance stood on her bridge and made a promise to the dead of Elysium 7, to Maria and her children, to the old teacher and his students, to every soul who had died calling for help that never came. "We're coming," she whispered, "and we will make them pay for every single life." The fury of Terra turned toward space. Behind it, 60,000 ships followed. The wrath of humanity had awakened. And it was hungry. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. From every corner of human space, warships emerged from their hiding places. They came from hollow asteroids and secret moon bases. They rose from underground hangars on forgotten planets. They appeared from stations disguised as mining operations. 60,000 warships, each one built for a single purpose: revenge. Admiral Helena Vance stood on the bridge of the Fury of Terra and watched her fleet assemble. The sight took her breath away, even though she had helped plan it for 30 years. 12 Titan-class super-dreadnoughts formed the heart of the fleet. Each one was 15 kilometers long. Each one carried weapons that could crack a planet in half. Their names told the story of human anger: Fury of Terra, vengeance; Wrath of mankind, children's revenge, never forget, and 7 others. Around the Titans flew 500 Nemesis-class battleships. These were the killers of the fleet, fast and deadly, armed with weapons designed to tear through shields like paper. Then came the cruisers, the destroyers, the frigates, the carriers loaded with thousands of fighter craft, the gunboats, the support ships, an endless sea of metal and fury. Captain James stood beside Admiral Vance. He was her second in command and her oldest friend. "I never thought I'd actually see this day," he said quietly. "Neither did I," Helena admitted. "We built this fleet hoping we would never need it, hoping that would leave us alone, hoping we could live in peace." She turned to face him. Her eyes were hard. "They killed that hope when they killed Elysium 7. Across the fleet, crews prepared for war. These were not conscripts or volunteers. These were professionals who had trained their entire lives. Many came from families that had served in the secret fleet for generations. They had kept the secret. They had maintained the ships. They had waited. Now the waiting was over. In the weapons bay of the Fury of Terra, Chief Engineer Sarah Park checked the main armament, the Hellfire Lance. It was humanity's most terrible weapon, a device that tore holes in the fabric of space itself. Anything caught in its beam simply ceased to exist. They had nothing like it. No one did. "All lances charged and ready," Sarah reported. "God help anyone who gets in our way." The fleet also carried Omega rounds. These were planet killers, weapons so powerful that their use required direct authorization from Admiral Vance herself. They were meant as a last resort, a final option if they refused to surrender. Helena prayed she would not need them, but she would use them if she had to. Back on Earth, the entire planet had transformed into a war machine. Factories that once made cars now made missiles. Schools that once taught children now trained soldiers. Every human wanted to contribute. Old veterans came out of retirement. Young people lied about their age to enlist. Scientists worked day and night to improve weapons and shields. Doctors prepared for casualties. Everyone had seen the recording. Everyone knew someone who had died on Elysium 7. This was not just a war. This was personal. President spoke to the fleet via holographic broadcast. His image appeared on every ship in the Armada. 3 weeks ago, they murdered 2.3 million of our people, our families, our children. They did this because they thought we were weak. They thought we would do nothing. They thought we were insects. His voice grew cold. They were wrong. He looked at the camera, at the 60,000 ships, at the millions of men and women ready to fight. You carry the fury of all humanity. You carry the memory of our dead. You carry a message that the galaxy will never forget. Harm our children and we will end you. The speech ended. There was no cheering. The crews simply went back to work. They did not need motivation. The faces of the dead were motivation enough. Admiral Vance gathered her captains for a final briefing. 300 faces looked at her through holographic screens. These were the best officers humanity had. They had waited their whole lives for this mission. Intelligence has mapped every system, Helena said. There is called Dominion Prime. It's protected by 2,000 warships. They think that's an unbeatable force. She smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. They're about to learn how wrong they are. We outnumber them 30 to 1. Our weapons are more advanced. Our crews are better trained. And we have something they will never have. What's that, Admiral? A captain asked. Righteous fury. She pulled up a holographic map. Red dots marked positions. Blue dots marked human ships. The blue wave was overwhelming. We jumped directly to Dominion Prime. No warning. No mercy. We appear in their home system with 60,000 warships, and we show them what humanity does to those who murder our children. The captains nodded. Their eyes burned with the same cold fire as their admiral. High Archon Eth ordered the massacre, Helena continued. He will answer for it. The Empire will answer for it. 12,000 years of arrogance ends today. She straightened her uniform. Return to your ships, prepare for jump. We leave in 1 hour. The briefing ended. Captains rushed back to their commands. Final preparations were made. Weapons were checked. Jump drives were calibrated. Letters home were written. The fleet formed into attack position. 60,000 ships arranged in perfect formation. Each one knew its role. Each one was ready. Admiral Vance sat in her command chair. The weight of what was about to happen pressed down on her. She would lead humanity into its first major war. Millions might die. Worlds might burn. But when she closed her eyes, she saw the recording again. Maria holding her children. The old teacher protecting his students. 2.3 million innocent people murdered because an alien empire thought humans were worthless. Her doubt vanished. Her resolve hardened. All ships, she said. Jump drives engaged. Target Dominion Prime. The fleet charged its engines. Space began to bend and twist around each vessel. Admiral James said, "Any last words?" Helena Vance looked out at her armada, the most powerful force ever assembled by humanity, built in secret, hidden for decades, now unleashed. "Tell them we're coming," she said. "Tell them the insects are angry." 60,000 ships jumped into hyperspace. They vanished from human territory in a flash of light and energy. When they emerged, an empire would fall. The armada had risen, and nothing in the galaxy could stop it. High Archon Eth was eating dinner when the alarms began. He sat in his palace on Dominion Prime, surrounded by his advisors and servants. They were celebrating the Festival of Eternal Glory, a holiday that marked 12,000 years of supremacy. Musicians played, dancers performed. The finest foods covered the tables. Eth had not thought about the humans in weeks. Why would he? They were insects. The cleansing of Elysium 7 was already forgotten, just another minor action in the long history of dominance. Then the sky changed. At first there were only a few flashes of light. His advisors assumed it was part of the festival celebrations, some kind of firework display, but the lights kept coming. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. "What is happening?" Eth demanded. An aide checked the sensors and went pale. His hands trembled as he read the data. Ships High Archon, thousands of ships, they're appearing all over the system. Eth stood up. He walked to the great window of his palace and looked at the sky. He could not believe what he saw. The stars themselves seemed to be filling with metal. Ships emerged from hyperspace in wave after wave, each one larger than the last. They covered the sky like a plague of locusts, blocking out the light of the sun. "How many?" Eth whispered. The aide's voice cracked. 60,000 High Archon, 60,000 warships. Eth's 4 eyes went wide. It was impossible. The humans could not have this many ships. They were primitive, weak. They had barely developed faster-than-light travel 3 centuries ago. But the evidence was right in front of him, a wall of metal and weapons stretching across his entire sky. "Scramble the home fleet," he ordered, "all 2,000 ships now." The Navy responded quickly. 2,000 warships rose from stations and defense platforms. They formed into battle formation, ready to defend there. 2,000 against 60,000. On the bridge of the Fury of Terra, Admiral Helena Vance watched the fleet assemble. Her face showed no emotion. Her heart was cold and calm. "They're actually going to fight," Captain observed. "They're outnumbered 30 to 1. "They're arrogant," Helena replied. "They've never lost a battle in 12,000 years. They think they can't lose." She stood up. "Open a channel, all frequencies. I want every being on that planet to hear this." The communications officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Helena's voice echoed across Dominion Prime. It played in the palace, in the streets, in every home and building. Every heard the human admiral speak. "This is Admiral Helena Vance of the United Terran Confederacy. 6 weeks ago, you attacked our colony World Elysium 7. You murdered 2.3 million of our people. Men, women, children. You killed them with fire and poison. You did not warn them. You did not give them a chance to flee. You simply exterminated them." Her voice grew harder. "You called us insects. You called us pests. You thought we would do nothing. You thought we would cry and hide and forget." She paused. "You were wrong." In his palace, Eth stared at the holographic image of the human woman. She was small, fragile-looking, nothing like the mighty, and yet her eyes burned with something that made him feel afraid for the first time in his long life. "My name is Admiral Helena Vance," she continued. "Remember it. It is the last human name you will ever hear. Today, your empire ends. Today, you pay for what you did to our children." The channel closed. The battle began. It was not a battle, it was a massacre. The ships charged forward, confident in their ancient technology. They fired their weapons at the human fleet. Purple beams of energy lanced through space. The human shields absorbed the attacks like they were nothing. Then the humans fired back. Hellfire lances cut through warships like they were made of paper. Entire vessels simply vanished, torn apart by weapons that broke the laws of physics. Missiles and energy beams tore through formations. Fighters swarmed over larger ships like angry wasps. They had never faced anything like this. Their ships exploded by the dozens. Their shields failed. Their weapons did nothing. They tried to retreat, but the humans were everywhere. Admiral Vance watched the destruction with cold satisfaction. Every ship that burned was justice for Elysium 7. Every death was payment for human lives. But she took no joy in it. This was not pleasure. This was duty. In 4 hours it was over. The entire home fleet was destroyed. 2,000 ships reduced to debris and dust. Orbital stations burned. Defense platforms fell from the sky. Not a single human ship was lost. The 60,000 warships surrounded Dominion Prime. That was completely trapped. There was no escape, no hope of rescue, no chance of survival. Admiral Vance opened another channel. "High Archon Eth, your fleet is destroyed. Your defenses are gone. You are surrounded by 60,000 warships, each one capable of destroying your cities from orbit." She leaned forward. "You have one chance to survive. Unconditional surrender. You will dissolve your empire. You will dismantle your military. You will turn over all war criminals, including yourself, to face justice. You will pay for what you did to Elysium 7. Eth stood in his throne room surrounded by terrified advisors. His hands shook. His arrogance was gone. He looked old and small and afraid. "And if we refuse?" he asked. Helena's response was simple. "Then your planet will share Elysium 7's fate. Every city will burn. Every building will fall. Your species will watch their die, just as you made us watch our children die." She pressed a button. The recording from Elysium 7 played on every screen on Dominion Prime. They were forced to watch what they had done. The fires, the poison, the dying families, the screaming children. "You made us watch," Helena said. "Now you watch." The recording played for 2 hours. They could not look away. They saw the horror they had created. They saw Maria die with her children in her arms. They saw the old teacher fall trying to protect his students. When it ended, silence covered the planet. Eth fell to his knees. His pride was broken. His empire was broken. Everything he believed about superiority was broken. "We surrender," he said. His voice was empty. "We surrender unconditionally." Admiral Vance nodded. "Smart choice." Human ships began landing on Dominion Prime. Soldiers poured out, securing key buildings and capturing war criminals. They did not resist. They were too shocked, too broken. Helena Vance stood on the bridge of her ship and looked down at the conquered world. She had done what she promised. She had avenged Elysium 7. She had brought an empire to its knees. But there was no celebration, no cheering, only the weight of what had been done and what was still to come. Admiral Captain said, "We've won." Helena shook her head slowly. "We've won the battle. Now we need to win the peace. We need to show the galaxy what humanity truly is." She looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, other alien empires were watching, waiting, afraid. "We're not monsters," she said quietly. "We don't want to be feared, but they needed to know. They all needed to know." She turned from the window. "Harm our children, and there is nowhere in the universe you can hide." The fury had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same. The galaxy watched in silence as an empire fell. News of the human victory spread across the stars within days. Every intelligent species heard the story. The Dominion, rulers of this sector for 12,000 years, had been defeated, not in a long war, not in a close battle. They had been crushed in a single day by a species they had called insects. 60,000 warships, 4 hours, total victory. The other alien empires were terrified. On Dominion Prime, the work of justice began. Admiral Helena Vance oversaw the surrender personally. She watched as soldiers laid down their weapons. She watched as their great warships were dismantled piece by piece. She watched as an empire that had killed dozens of species simply stopped existing. But she did not allow cruelty. "We are not them," she told her soldiers. "We are not murderers, we are not butchers. We came here for justice, not revenge. Remember that." The human occupation was strict but fair. Civilians were not harmed. Cities were not destroyed. Food and medicine were provided to those who needed it. They had expected genocide. They received something else instead. They received justice. The war criminals were gathered for trial. High Archon Eth was among them. He had ordered the attack on Elysium 7. He had called it pest control. He had celebrated while 2.3 million humans died. The trial was held on the ruins of Elysium 7 itself. Ships carried the accused to the dead world. They landed on gray ash where green fields once grew. They walked on ground where children once played. They stood in the shadow of broken buildings where families once lived. Eth looked around at the destruction. For the first time, he truly understood what he had done. This was not statistics. This was not numbers. This was a world. These ashes were people. The silence was the silence of murdered children. "Do you understand now?" Admiral Vance asked him. "Do you see what you destroyed?" Eth could not speak. His 4 eyes filled with something they did not often feel: shame, horror, regret. "I thought you were nothing," he whispered. "I thought your lives did not matter." "Every life matters," Helena replied. "That is the difference between us." The trial lasted 3 weeks. Evidence was presented. Testimony was given. The galaxy watched as the truth of Elysium 7 was shown to everyone. They could not deny what they had done. The recordings left no room for lies. In the end, Eth and 47 other war criminals were found guilty of genocide. Their sentence was execution. They died on the same ground where they had killed 2.3 million innocent people. It was justice, cold and final and necessary. But Admiral Vance knew that justice was not enough. The dead could not be brought back. The pain could not be erased. Something more was needed, something that would last. She ordered that to build a memorial. It took 2 years to complete. A great wall of black stone stretching for kilometers across the surface of Elysium 7. On that wall, carved deep into the rock, were names. 2.3 million names. Every person who died in the massacre was remembered. Maria, David, their children, and Thomas. The old teacher, Robert Graham, and his students. Every single soul had their name carved into stone that would last 10,000 years. At the center of the memorial stood a statue, a human woman holding 2 children. Maria, frozen in stone, protecting her babies for eternity. Below the statue, words were carved in 100 languages. Here lie 2.3 million human beings. They were murdered because an empire thought they did not matter. They mattered. They will always matter. Never forget. Never again. The memorial became sacred ground. Humans traveled across the galaxy to visit it, to read the names, to remember, to promise that such horror would never happen again. They were required to send their children to the memorial as part of their education. Every young would walk among the names. They would learn what their ancestors did. They would carry that knowledge forever. The galaxy changed. A new council was formed, the Galactic Assembly. Humanity did not seek to rule it. They did not want an empire. They wanted peace. They wanted safety. They wanted a galaxy where no species would ever be exterminated again. But they made one thing very clear. "We will protect the innocent," President told the assembled alien ambassadors. "We will not start wars. We will not conquer worlds. We will not bully or threaten. But if any species attacks the helpless, if any empire murders children, if anyone repeats what they did, we will come, and we will finish what we started." The other empires believed him. They had seen the fleet. They had watched the fall. They knew that humanity was not making empty threats. Peace spread across the galaxy, not because the aliens loved humanity, but because they feared what humanity could do if pushed. It was not the best reason for peace, but it worked. Admiral Helena Vance retired from the Navy. She had done her duty. She had avenged the dead. Now she wanted rest. She moved to New Elysium, a colony built on the same planet where the massacre occurred. Children played in parks built over the ashes. Farmers grew crops in soil that had once been death. Life returned to a world that had been silenced. Helena spent her final years tending a garden near the memorial. She would walk among the names, touching the stone, remembering the people she had never met but had fought to avenge. One day, an alien diplomat visited her. He was from a species that had watched the war with great interest. He had a question that had bothered him for years. "Admiral Vance," he said, "your fleet could have destroyed them completely. You could have burned their worlds, killed their civilians, ended their species forever. Why didn't you?" Helena looked at the memorial, at the statue of Maria holding her children. "Because we're not monsters," she said simply. "We never wanted revenge. We wanted justice. We wanted safety. And we wanted the galaxy to understand something important." "What is that?" Helena turned to face the alien. Her eyes were old but still sharp, still filled with that cold fire that had broken an empire. "Humanity is not a threat. We don't want to conquer. We don't want to rule. We just want to live in peace, raise our families, and build our futures. But our children are sacred. Harm them and we become something else. Something terrible. Something that will chase you across the stars and tear your empire apart." She looked back at the names on the wall. They forgot that children matter. They forgot that every life has value. We made sure the galaxy will never forget. The diplomat was silent for a long moment. And if someone does forget, if another empire attacks your colonies, Admiral Helena Vance, hero of humanity, savior of the innocent, smiled. It was not a warm smile. Then we'll remind them, she said. However many times it takes, however many ships we need to build, however far we need to travel, we'll remind them. She touched the name carved in front of her, Maria. Because that's what humans do. We remember our dead, we protect our children, and we never ever give up. The sun set over New Elysium. Children laughed in the distance. Families gathered for dinner. Life continued on a world that had once been dead. And across the galaxy, in every empire and every civilization, one truth was now understood. Never harm humanity's children. Never. The end.